I've been running for the past 20 years and have PBs ranging from 13:54 in the 5k to 2:18 in the marathon. Over this 20 years, I've picked up many tips and tricks, which may seem very basic to some people, but I know will be very helpful for people who are not as far along in their running journey. I'm going to take you through these tips today, starting off with 10 performance related tips, before moving into some more random tips that should just help make your running more fun and enjoyable. So let's get into it. The first of the performance tips is be consistent. You really have to do something in training that you can repeat over and over a number of weeks. If you're just starting out in running, then this is incredibly important because you don't want to sicken yourself. You don't want to wake up the next day and not be able to walk because you ran too far on your first run. Improving at running, unfortunately, is a long-term commitment and you're not really going to make any improvements in 1 week. So you have to just do something that you can keep doing, keep replicating. Don't run too fast, don't run too far, just do less than you think that you should be doing. That's always going to be a good rule moving forward. The next tip, which is related to being consistent, is slow down. Easy runs are supposed to be easy. You should be recovering on these runs. You should finish them feeling better than when you started them. Running your easy runs easy will allow you to do more volume on these easy days and will allow you to really hit the hard days hard, feeling good, building confidence and hitting the paces that you want to hit. On that note, slowing down also applies to your hard days. The hard training days really shouldn't be max effort all the time. I personally don't really do any max effort training. Max effort is saved for race day. I'm always sitting around that 95% effort. And again, that's coming down to consistency. If you're going to 100% every Wednesday, every Saturday, then it's going to be really hard to repeat this over a long period of time. If you're just pulling back, going at 95% effort on your hard days and really saving that max effort for race day, you're going to be able to develop that consistency that will allow you to improve. The third tip on my list, and this is a big one, is recovery. You have to prioritize sleep, proper rest, good nutrition, and all this stuff is far more important than foam rolling and Normatec boots. Of course, these things do help, but if you're not nailing that sleep, recovery and nutrition, then no amount of foam rolling or sitting in Normatec boots is going to save you. The only extra recovery things that I really do are getting a massage, which is especially important closer to race day, and I also go for Epsom salt baths quite often, but this is more of a treat than a proper recovery method. Recovery isn't just related to day-to-day stuff, which is obviously very important, but after races you have to recover. You can't be racing a marathon or even a half marathon and jumping straight back into training right away. You really have to pull back on that intensity after races because you're running at max effort and that takes a lot out of you. So have down weeks. Don't try to be fit all year round. Really pull back on the training when you've raced or when you're overtired or when something's just not quite right. If you're not recovering, you're not going to get the benefits from training. So recover. Tip number 4 is join a club or get a coach. Joining a club is a great way to meet fellow runners and will allow you to do races like cross-country races that you wouldn't be able to do without a club. It's also a great way to make sure that you're on the right track from day one because the club coaches have years of experience and will help you out with any questions or queries that you might have. If you can't make it along to your local club or you want something more personalised, I've actually started doing some coaching, so if you're interested in finding out more about that, I'll leave a link to my Instagram in the description and you can just send me a message over there and I'll get back to you right away. Tip number 5, which is related to going to a running club, is run with people or at least use music or podcasts to help pass the time. I find that running with people is the best way to have good conversations because there's just no modern distractions like phones or iPads or whatever. It's just people chatting for an hour at a time, and strangely you never run out of things to talk about. So get someone to run with, or at very least get on a running podcast that will help inspire you or teach you something. I listen to both music and running podcasts and I definitely won't out my music taste on the channel just yet, but here are some of my recently listened to running podcasts, which can hopefully help you find a new hidden gem. Tip number 6 is make steady progress. Don't try and do everything all at once. And the general rule is that you shouldn't try and increase your mileage by more than 10% in 1 week. This is obviously maybe a little bit different if you're more experienced, but I really think it's a good rule to stick with. 10% increase is quite a big jump in mileage, so if you try and keep your mileage increase below that, you'll probably not go far wrong. If your body can't handle the mileage that you want to do, or you keep getting injured, consider cross training even when you're not injured. My body is pretty robust to high mileage, so I don't personally do this, but I know a lot of people who are a lot better than me who use the bike and the cross trainer even when they're in full training. I've always said that your heart and lungs don't know the difference. If your heart rate's 160 on the bike, you're probably working just as hard as you would be on a run at the same heart rate. So just don't focus too much on that mileage, just try and get the training in, and if that means cross training, that's completely fine. Tip number 7, and one that you'll expect to hear from me if you've been watching other videos on the channel, is strength train. This is probably the main reason why I've been so lucky with injuries over my career. I've only had 2 injuries in my whole running career, and actually in both occasions I was neglecting areas in the gym. I personally do twice a week weight sessions and twice a week core sessions. Core for me doesn't mean just abs. Core for me is everything that's not weighted in the gym. So I'm doing hamstring curls, calf raises, glute bridges, as well as also doing abs. Strength training is a great way to keep you injury free and also helps you run faster, so it's a win-win. Don't sacrifice strength training to run a little bit more. Usually in people's programs, the strength training is the first to go when things get a little bit busy, but just 20 minutes in the house is even enough to keep some injuries away. You don't have to be going to the gym for 90 minutes twice a week. Just get some calf raises done, get some glute bridges done, and really don't let yourself slack on this. Tip number 8, and this applies to race day but also in training sessions, is pace yourself. You really have to be realistic with your targets in races, and starting too slow is always going to be better than starting too fast. Once you cross over into that red zone, there's no coming back from it. Especially in races with the adrenaline, maybe too high expectations, loads of people go off too fast. You'll see it if ever you go and watch a big city race. You see those people in the first 400 metres and see them again with about 2 miles to go. They're not going at the same speed. And really, even if you try to go off too slow, it's probably still going to be too fast. But all of my best races have either been faster in the second half or I've at least maintained the same speed. Any time that I've went off too quickly, it's not been a good day. It's a bit of a death march in the second half, and that's really something that you want to avoid. You're going to get your best races by running consistent splits and feeling good in the second half. Especially if you're passing people, you're going to be feeling confident, you're going to be feeling good, and it's just going to be a much more positive experience and result. A good way to hold yourself back at the start of the race is having A, B and C goals. If you have that A goal that's like an ultimate goal and you go off pacing yourself for that, then hopefully you should be able to keep it going. But if you can't, then a B goal and a C goal really gives you something to keep working towards, and hopefully will stop the head from going down in the second half and allow you to actually feel that you got something out of the race, even if it wasn't the A goal that you were looking for. Performance tip number 9 is do strides. Strides are basically just short bursts of speed, somewhere between 10 and 20 seconds. Not full out sprinting, probably just running around 95% of max effort, but really focusing on having good form and running quick, relaxed. The faster you can run over the shorter distances, the easier the paces for your longer races will feel. And I've found that strides are a great way to just increase that top end speed without necessarily having to go to a track, put spikes on and smash some fast reps. Recently I've been using more hill strides in my training, about 4 to 8 times 8 to 10 second hills, not incredibly steep, probably around a 4% gradient where you can still sprint up it, you're still moving well, but you've got that resistance from the hill. But flat strides are another great option for increasing speed, and I did them probably for the first 15 years of my running career. 4 to 8 times 10 to 20 seconds, just flat strides on the road. You should be taking a decent recovery on these. at least around a minute to just make sure that your system is ready to go again and that you can really run as quick as you'd like to. Again, don't sprint. That's a surefire way to pull a calf or a hamstring. Just 95% good form, relaxed, and please build into these gradually. 4 by 10 seconds is more than enough the first time you try it. And actually, you don't have to go as far as 20 seconds, but that is just an upper limit for these. The final performance tip, which is another one that I've spoken in depth about on the channel before, is fuel. You have to fuel before, fuel during, and fuel after your training. One mistake I see people make is trying to run without eating breakfast, and that just makes training harder than it has to be, especially if you're going far. Try to have at least a gel or a piece of toast or a cereal bar before you go out for one of these long sessions. And then once you're out there, have some gels with you, have some water with you. Don't be scared to fuel. Your body's burning carbs the whole time. You really have to replace these. It's going to help your recovery. It's going to help train your stomach if you're training for a marathon. And it's just going to make training a lot more pleasant. What?
No.
If you're going out running for 2 hours with no gel, no water, it's going to be miserable. It's not going to be a positive experience, and you're not going to be able to run as quickly as you probably plan to. So just take a few gels with you, take water if you can, and make sure that you're already fueled before you go out. I always have a bowl of porridge about 90 minutes before I go running. I cannot remember the last time I ran before breakfast because I just don't like it, and I just don't think that it's a great thing to be doing. Obviously, if you're running before work, then you probably won't have time to have a whole bowl of porridge, but just try and have some kind of small snack before you go out running. And then afterwards, you really have to be refueling as quickly as possible after the run, getting that protein in within 20 minutes of finishing. If you struggle with your appetite immediately, like I personally do after a hard workout, try having some chocolate milk. Chocolate milk is the perfect recovery drink. It's got exactly what you need to recover, and it's lovely. I'm a massive fan of chocolate milk. I have it after almost every session, and it's just a great way to kickstart that recovery process right away. Moving on to the non-performance related tips, we're going to start with one that I really hope you didn't have to learn the hard way like I did. It's use some kind of Vaseline or body glide or nipple plasters before a long run or long session. This is especially important if it's raining heavy or it's really hot. I personally use body glide, which although it's quite expensive, I find that it works a lot better than Vaseline, and it's really not one of those things that's worth scrimping on, I don't think. The second non-performance related tip is very much related to this discomfort, but it's about race shoes. It's wear in your race shoes before you race in them. Every pair of Nike and Adidas Carbons that I've had have really cut up my heels the first time I've wore them. So just try wearing them around the house, wear them for short sessions before your race, wear Compeed on your heels, and hopefully this won't be an issue that you have to worry about on race day. Sticking with feet, my next tip is that expensive is not always better. After about 10 years of wearing more mile socks that I always get free from Start Fitness, I tried switching to Nike socks that cost me about £10, and I wore those Nike socks twice before they got holes in the toes. So I switched back to the free socks and I have never had any issues with them. I swear I've had some pairs of more mile socks for like 15 years and I still wear them. They're still really good. I wouldn't race in them, they're pretty done, but I can still do easy runs in them. This tip doesn't just apply to socks, and also applies to running trainers. You don't have to buy the latest, most up-to-date model to run well and to stay uninjured. I think I'm about 3 or 4 models behind on my ASICS GT 2000s, which I wear for all my easy runs. And I just do that because it's cheaper and because they're exactly the same, they're just a different colour. So check the outlets, check places like Start Fitness and sportshoes.com, and try to get a good deal on your running shoes or anything else that they might sell for cheap. So don't just buy stuff because it's expensive. Really find good quality stuff and don't just follow the hype. Moving on to my next tip one thing that I have spent money on is a good quality running belt. I always use my phone for music when I'm out running. I know that one of my tips was to run with people, but I don't run with people as much as I should. I like just getting out there and listening to music, listening to a podcast, and I don't want to carry my phone in my hand because that's just annoying. So I'll always use my running belt. I got this one from Decathlon a few years ago and it's still in really good condition, does the job perfectly. If I'm going for a long run, I can put gels in it, I can fit in soft flasks for my drinks, and I can stuff some toilet paper in there as well, just in case. I actually ran my 2:18 marathon with this running belt on, and after about 100 metres, you just completely forget that it's there because there's no clips or anything. You just step into it and then step out of it again when you're done. So yeah, invest in a good running belt so that you don't have to carry stuff with you. The final tip, which is one that probably exposes me for being a bit of a running nerd, is read some running books. A lot of people will probably screw their face up at this and think, oh, why would you want to do that? But a lot of running books are really good. I'm going to have a good look on my bookshelf and find the best running books for you. But one that really springs to mind for me is Running with the Buffaloes. It's just a book that always motivates me, always makes me want to go out and train harder. And yeah, it's probably one of the few books in my whole life that I've read more than once. So that's it for running tips. I've left a link to everything that I've mentioned in the description. If you found any of these tips useful, please consider subscribing and leave a comment if you thought of any other tips that may help someone else out. Thanks for watching. Cheers.